Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Talking Tradesman. In the studio with me today, I have none other than Lee Anderson from Lee Anderson Coaching and the Lighthouse Club. Lee, thank you very much for coming down, mate. It's an honour to finally meet you. We've spoken for a while, but let's talk, man.
Mate, first of all, I really appreciate the time. And the space like this studio is incredible. You know what I mean?
Thank you,
I've been
mate.
watching your journey.
Yeah, I know you have, mate.
I've seen
Yeah,
you from afar.
yeah.
And this, mate, you should be really proud of where you've taken this so far. You know what I mean? So thank you for the invite. I appreciate it. And we get a chance to meet in person.
That's it, man. It's all about that.
Coming, isn't it?
It has. I mean, actually, I'll take the opportunity to say thank you to you as well, because you've repeatedly reached out, checked in on me on a few occasions and stuff like that. So I really appreciate what you're doing, like what you do for the community and construction and everybody that you speak to, mate. It's so valuable. You know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really grateful there's people like you out there, mate. So from my side, like, thank you for what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that, mate. You know, I do. It's difficult being a man, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Especially being in this kind of industry that's seeped.
Yeah.
Kind of, we go to work and we say nothing.
It is, mate. I mean, I'm a little bit hesitant that we could go down a massive rabbit hole here that would probably take up the whole podcast, but the whole difficulty being a man. When you've spoke to Susie as well, haven't you? Susie Bennett, incredible. Yeah. But I think being a man in today's society is even more difficult because those parameters of what it's meant to be are getting really blurred. And what's acceptable and what we're expected to be is really getting muddy. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
So
there is. So just to add a bit of context, so I'm a life coach. I've been coaching now for about eight and a half years. I used to work for the MOD. So I was a civilian working in the military environment. And I liked the discipline that was within the military. But what I didn't like was the way that they're conditioned. Because they become a number, they become a surname. Yeah. And you are conditioned to become this fighting tool, you know, to go out and protect and provide and serve, you know, pretty much what a man is kind of led to believe and conditioned to believe. But what I liked about it was the camaraderie and the togetherness of it all. But what I did see a lot of was once they come out of the military, there was nothing for them. They didn't know how to go into that transition of civilian world. You know, they're used to having things done for them. When to get up, where to go, getting picked up, getting taken to the destinations, knowing what their post's going to be, all that sort of stuff. But when that is taken away from you, and it's like, okay, see you later.
Big wide world, out you go.
And it's hard to adapt and it's hard to adjust. And for me, it was kind of, what next? What comes after that? Now, there was a facility there for them after, which was the Army Welfare Service. So they could be looked after in a therapeutic environment. You know, so they're getting counselling, coaching, even down to things like social work and stuff like that. Everything's kept in-house.
Okay.
They didn't have to go outside for it.
How recently was it that you did that?
So I came out of that about 7 years ago. I've been living in France now 7 years. So yeah, about 7 years ago. And what they done was they started to realise that when they were coming for support, because they were sitting there in their uniforms, it was going in rank structure, that you wouldn't get anything below a sergeant opening up to anybody in fear of being judged because they've got a superior sitting in front of them.
That's interesting.
So they started to bring civilians in to break that kind of mould.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, it was lucky because I just had a massive mental breakdown and I was trying to put my life back together. I've always been good with people. I've always been able to read people. I was a parent pleaser growing up. I wanted to be seen.
Yeah.
So I would do what I could, and I could read people's energy. If people's energy was off, are you all right? I would try to pacify and make sure they was all right. Because if I can make someone laugh or feel good about themselves, I've done something. I can be seen.
I must admit, mate, one thing I'll say about you or to you is that when you do say things, you have you've got a knack of cutting straight to the issue and going straight in with something. You've done it with me a couple of times where I've gone, whoa, okay, yeah, get it. You know what I mean? And you've got that knack of like possibly recognising something that somebody just hasn't quite noticed about themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know what it is.
It's a gift.
I've had it for as long as I can remember. People will say to me, you make me feel like you can see me. And you make me feel like you're listening to me. And I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested in people. And so I didn't know that was a quality. That was just a way of me to be seen. I didn't look about it from their perspective in that sense. And I like people. I like how people make me feel, but at the same time, I don't like being around a lot of people. I can't function properly. I get really bad social anxiety.
Yeah.
And growing up, as I said before, we lived in and around pubs, so pubs were like the hub of the community for us. Everything went on there. Do you know what I mean? And
So let's take it right back, mate, and we'll go semi-chronological. But how were things for you, like growing up, childhood, that kind of thing?
so growing up, I was the eldest of three kids. I've got two younger sisters. Didn't know my dad. Never met my dad as well. I met my dad for the first time when I was 21.
Really?
Yeah, we met for lunch. And I didn't know what he looked like. I built up this image in my head of what I thought my dad looked like.
Yeah.
And when I met him, he looked nothing like that image in my head. He looked like me. And it was really, really bizarre because I remember I turned around and I saw this man and I saw me looking back.
You knew it was him straight away, obviously.
Straight away. And my mum had relationships and she'd always try to get us to call him dad and sort of, and I'd always kick back. He's not my dad, But he was the first person that I called dad and it actually felt right. I had no expectations from him. He hadn't been in my life at all up until that point. I was just curious as to why did you get in touch now?
So he reached out to you?
He reached out to me. But what I did say to myself before I met him was that I wasn't going to have any expectations from this man. I just wanted to find out what he wanted.
Okay.
I wasn't going to punish him for not being there. I wasn't going to punish him for leaving my mum. I wasn't going to do none of that stuff because their relationship was their relationship.
Yeah,
I was just focused on, okay, let's see where this goes. And it was nice for the first hour. And then we went over the road and had a couple of drinks and he started talking about these other children that he hadn't seen, these other children that he'd abandoned, these other children that he'd, just let go. And from that particular moment then, I was like, I don't need this man in my life. And I remember it was my mum that phoned me and said, your dad's been in touch, do you want to meet him? And I said to her how do you feel about that? Because I felt like I was going against her. And she was like, you're your own man, you can do what you want. So when I came out of the pub, she said to me, phone me when you leave and let me know you get on. I remember getting on the bus and I was thinking, well, I can't phone him and tell him he's a proper dickhead, can I? Do you know what I mean? So I'm really trying to think of how I can say this to her. So then when I was on the bus, I was fuming and I was really trying to process my feelings. And I'm really, really bad at regulating my emotions. And I remember phoning her saying, he's a prick. I'm never going to speak to him again. If he ever phones, put the phone down. Don't give him my number. I'm not interested. Do you know what I mean? And I remember I went out about 2 weeks later when I got drunk because that was my go-to.
Yeah. And
I phoned him up and I let him have it down the phone. Like really let him have it down the phone. And then I remember going to sleep and waking up the next morning and thinking, I need to do some damage limitation here. And I called him back and I apologised for speaking to him the way that I spoke to him because my mum raised me better than that. But I said to him, everything that I said to you, I meant. Lose my number. If you see me on the street, cross over. We have nothing in common. I sat with you for 2 hours and you didn't even see me. You were telling me about kids that you hadn't seen, other kids that you'd abandoned. But here I am sitting in front of you and you reached out to me. And he was like, fair enough. And I was just kind of like, that was another lucky escape. But all my life, I had struggled with abandonment issues, but not knowing what they were. My mum had relationships. I completely put a massive barrier between me and them because I didn't want to emotionally connect to these people because men hurt me. They neglect me. They leave me. If my mum's relationships broke down, I also took that personally as well.
Do you know what, mate? It's a point that's worth emphasising, really, because I've done a lot of self-development and growth myself around abandonment issues. And to emphasise that there's that like thing, isn't there, where everyone goes, anything to do with psychology, it's about what happened as a kid. 9 times out of 10 it is.
Absolutely.
There's such truth in it. And
100%.
once I realised that it was abandonment issues that was kind of dictating my behaviour patterns, it was a game changer. It's a life changer because you can then, I don't know about how you feel about this, but like I still have the same thought patterns. I just recognise them.
Yep.
Can't stop them.
Yep.
Like I've not worked, if there is a way to do it, but I've not worked out how you stop that. But I can now go, okay, that thought, I know where it came from, rather than just being controlled and dictated by those thoughts. It's now I can go, but that, that's not really why I'm thinking that way. So it's such a key thing to anybody listening that that you've got those sort of like traumas in your childhood to explore, and just look at how that might be affecting the way that you're handling your adult life.
Yeah, and because you don't know, I say to a lot of people, we only know what we know until we challenge it. But we need to challenge it. in order to grow. Because we need to add to context. Because 9 times out of 10, we just do things automatically without thinking about it. And you go, why'd you do that? And you go, oh, I just do.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, why do you just do that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why. Okay, well, let's think about it. Let's try and pull it apart. Like, why? You know, clients that I work with, when they do stuff, and I'm like, do you know you just said that? And they're like, no. You know, and I'm like, okay, so let's dig a little deeper. Because they're our learned behaviours. You know, everything that I knew, I picked up from the people that I've been around. You know, you're a product of your environment. So everything that I knew about, you know, interacting with people, I learned from my mum. My mum was a very, very good people person. You know, she would make anybody feel 10 feet tall in the room. Do you know what I mean? Just by just being in that room. I'd see how people would elevate when she walked in or she talked to them. Do you know, she had this knack of being that way. You know, working bars, you can have 15 conversations at once and still be in tune with every single one of those people, you know what I mean? And you just pick up that sort of stuff because you watch and you absorb and, you know, you kind of mimic in a way. That's what a learned behaviour is. And for me, you know, my mum was always kind of like, when she got into a relationship, it's like, I've got you a Father's Day card for him. It's like, he's not my dad.
Yeah.
I don't care. And for her, it was harsh. Why are you being like that? But for me, it was like, because I know that he's going to have an argument with you at some point and you're going to pack his bag and he's going to leave. So I'm not getting myself emotionally attached to this man at all. But what it would do is it would make me shut down towards other people as well, because neglect is hard.
So you were always, because of the abandonment, standoffish because you don't want to let anyone in.
Didn't want to let anyone in.
Right.
And my mum worked, so I had the responsibility of looking after my sisters. And, you know, it's hard looking after somebody else's children. My mum would always nominate us for babysitting. You know, I'm Leah do it. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry, give him, you're getting a father for it. Let him do it. And I'm like, I don't look after their kids. Yeah, but we know we can trust you. I don't want to look after these kids. Do you know what I mean? Like 11 years of age. But for me, I kept my feelings and my thoughts to myself because I didn't have any role models around me that were showing me how to deal with them, how to process them, how to talk about them, how to understand them. You know, I never heard those conversations growing up. And I grew up I was born in 75. I'm nearly 50.
Fucking hell, mate. Listen, you look good for that. Honestly, mate. I wouldn't have put you any older than me. If anything, I'd have put you younger than me. So, mate, you're doing well. There's something about what you're doing. I need to fuck off to France.
So I've always been around women, you know, my mum, my 2 sisters, my mum's friends, she's lived with us as well. Then there was my 5 aunts and my nan, you know, so I was always around women, always listening to women talking about men and bringing men down and saying that men weren't doing this and men weren't doing that. So I'd got my insight into what I thought men were like.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? And at the same time, I was still trying to figure my own shit out.
How did you process? I get that. So, like, the female contingent around you have influenced how you feel about men. How was that being a man? Because how do you...
I don't know, because you're not looking for... I think I was always looking to escape, mate. So you know what anchors and drivers are, don't you? Anchors are things that keep you rooted to where you come from, and the driver is what is trying to get you away from who you are. But it's the bit in the middle that we forget about, because that's where we grow and process stuff. But all I was focusing on was I needed to get away from this environment, but I didn't know where I was going. And I always knew from a very young age that I was going to make old bones in a different country. Like, I wasn't going to die in the UK. Do you know what I mean? But I was never one for travelling. I was quite a loner and kept myself to myself. You know, I was quite a homebody in that sense. So travelling was never on my radar. But I always had this thing inside me saying, I'm not going to die in England.
Whereabouts did you grow up?
So I grew up in South East London, so I was brought up in Woolwich.
Right, okay.
So I was brought up there. We moved to Northampton for a couple of years, which I loved. Yeah. Because nobody knew us. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I grew up in an area where everybody knew us. I was always someone's son. I was always Myra's boy. You know, I was never Lee. I was always Rhea and Raina's brother. You know what I mean? Or you're Margaret's grandson, aren't you? Like, I was never Lee, and you can never shake that off. Yeah. Even with a cloak of invisibility, mate, they knew. I was like, oh, I know your mum. Yeah. Oh, I know your nan. I know your aunt. And it's kind of
There's a beauty to that, mate. I've done it myself. I bet you many people have done this same thing. So after I went through a period of my life where I got divorced, and then I moved over here, so this isn't my hometown, and we're only half an hour, 40 minutes away from my hometown. Nobody knew me here. Yeah. And it was like, I can reinvent myself. Do you know what I mean? I can go to the shop without 10 people stopping me going, how's that going? How's this going? Oh, I've heard this, I've heard that. Nobody's heard anything because nobody knew me. Yeah. And there's a beauty to that. I've heard a few people seem to do it. Yeah, whether it's consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah, I think my mum was a very big personality. She was very... in a nice way, she would engulf a room, you know what I mean, and almost take up a lot of space. And sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, Do you know what I mean? But you learn to adapt and adjust. My mum was very fiery, so she had the role of mad out, like the mum and mum and dad.
Yeah.
But my nan was very physical as well, so it was again a learned behaviour. It was hereditary. I'd see how my nan was with my mum. They clashed massively.
When you say physical, like as in physically
Yeah, my mum
fighting
used
with
to
each
beat
other?
us.
Okay.
My mum used to we used to go and get the slipper. She was like, go and get that slipper. And we used to get him. She'll beat us with it. You know what I mean? Stick, hoover pipe, you name it. That was her go-to because it was the way that she knew she could discipline us. Because I think for her, it was making sure that people didn't judge her in the way that she felt that she was being judged. She had 3 mixed race kids by 3 different dads. You know what I mean? In the late 70s, early 80s. And that was unheard of. That's shame. My mum taught us what it was like to carry shame from a very young age.
Really?
Do you know what I mean? And so for her, everything we heard her say, every bad word, every negative thing, it impacts us.
It's a lot for you to have absorbed, isn't it? A lot of it subconsciously. Because, I mean, what do they say? That the brain development doesn't stop developing to, 21, 25, somewhere in between that, depending on the individual. It's a lot for you to be sucking in at that time. And when you said to me that your dad had reached out when you were 21, immediately what I thought there was that's a tough age to navigate all those emotions. Because I don't think you're still not fully emotionally matured at that age, are you?
I didn't. I obviously know what emotional intelligence is and that, but back then I didn't. Do you know what I mean? Again, like I said to you, I can't regulate my emotions. It just comes out, and I think that you're trying to find out who you are. You're trying to navigate the world. You're trying to navigate these emotions that are coursing through your body as your body's changing, and you're growing, and you're finding these random hairs everywhere, and you're waiting for your balls to drop, and all this sort of stuff. But you don't share it with nobody. You're doing it all on your own.
Yeah.
You would jokingly say to your mates, but not too much, because you're not too sure what it's supposed to look like or you're supposed to feel about it. So you don't want to give away too much, because then it's ammunition they're going to use against us. So you're trying to figure shit out, and then you're only coming to your own conclusions. We didn't have the internet back then.
Yeah.
We didn't have mobile phones back then. We had yellow pages in the Thompson Local.
I'm the same. Well, I'm not the same generation, mate, but my generation. I was born '84,
Right.
So I'm 40 now.
And you're young.
We were. I know. Don't look it, mate. Do I? Hard paper round. But we were probably one of the last generations through. I reckon. I think I got my first mobile phone probably at about 14, but it was certainly not a smartphone. You know what I mean? It was like you could play Snake on it.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the only one. But yeah, we were probably one of the last non-internet generations where you hadn't got constant connectivity, which I'm so fucking grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's worth pointing out, to be fair, like, things were just so different.
I preferred back then because everything, you had to make an effort.
Yeah.
You had to make an effort. It wasn't just a thing of getting a contraption out of my pocket and hitting a button and then 20 minutes later, something at my door. Do you know what I mean? Back in the day, we had to go and find each other. We had to go knock on someone's door physically and say, "Are you coming out to play?" And they go, "No, you went out half an hour ago." And then you're going around from different parts of this state to different parts of this
Looking
state.
for the bikes, Lee. That was the one. Looking for the bike. You knew what your mate's bike looked like. You knew where your mate was by whose house his bike was outside. There was a beauty to that, mate. There really was.
I loved it back in the day.
Yeah. And then, do you know what the worst thing is? Those days are never coming back.
No.
Like, that's so far gone. Having 2 kids myself and seeing the difference between them, like, growing up now, it's hard because they're never going to understand the comparison that I see, because they're never going to experience what we experienced.
No, that's a shame, isn't it?
It is. At the same time, I mean, they probably think they're having a great time. Yeah. But I look and think, don't you wish you were doing this? And that, like they look, like, what you on about? Doing that? It's not a thing.
What's the fax machine?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
yeah.
It's like, what's the pager? He's like, do me a favour.
Isn't it funny how we romanticize all these things that technically were harder to do or harder to use?
I never used a pager, man. I didn't know how to use it.
Yeah.
I just knew it was cool, but I didn't know what to do with it. I knew that certain people carried pagers, but it was just, back in the day, it was just easier.
I clocked that one, mate. I remember the exact moment. It's funny how these things stick in your head. So one of my friends had a pager, the first one, and we were probably about 14, 15, and he had this pager. And I remember first of all, we went to a local fair and they had the waltzers, and he lost his pager, and he was fucking distraught because he was like, my mum's just bought it me, she's going to go mad. And he made the lads at the fair like stop the waltzer so he could find it, get back to this booth he was sat in, and found it. But he found this page and looked at it, and straight away all he got was a message from his mum, because she was the only one with a number. Because you used to have to ring a phone number, didn't you? And then you could speak, and it would put it in the writing, and it was just a message from his mum going, "You're late, get back home." I remember just this dawning realization, going, "Why the fuck would I want one of them?"
Yeah.
You know, it's just something where I can be told to get home. So completely swerved it, but they were cool for a while.
They were. I mean, we were like latchkey kids, right? So we lived on the estate, and we knew everybody was in each other's houses. You know, our front door was never shut, never ever ever shut. We'd always have the mat at the door. People just come in and go, "All right, it's only me." You know what I mean? And so my mum was at work, and we go home and obviously sort ourselves out, and so on and so forth. But I liked the environment I grew up in. I just really struggled with me because I didn't know how to be me. You know, one minute you're this child, and the next minute you're elevated to this level of being an adult. And then you're demoted back to a child when a man comes into the house, and then you're elevated back to an adult when they've gone. And it really fucks up your mind because you're being told to be responsible and use your discretion and use all these big words that you don't even know what they mean, let alone spell them. And then the next minute you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Don't do that. You know, do as I tell you. And like, but you told me to do so and so. I was like, no, but you're the kid. And so you're like, well, so it really does mess with you. And I was one of these kind of kids that I would clench my fists and bite my tongue because I didn't want to upset my mum because she scared the living shit out of me. And plus I thought if I did, she was going to kill me. And so I had all this frustration and all this anger that I used to carry with me, and I didn't know how to let it out. But then that would also spill over with my mates as well. I would let them treat them the way my mum treated me. And I'd shut up and I wouldn't say nothing. I'd clam down because I was scared. I was scared that they were going to go to me, "Go on, mate, fuck off. We don't need you as a mate no more." So I would just play the role. It was easier for me to do that. But the thing is that all that emotion has to go somewhere. And for me, it was just... I wasn't a physical person. I was never a physical person. I'm very sensitive, very, very sensitive. But you don't show that. You know, you hide it, you mask it up. You know, and I
Also, it's like growing up East London as well. It's anything like that's a vulnerability that's going to get pried open, isn't it?
And there's that culture as well. So there was like gangs where we lived. You know, so you know, every night we went out, we was always in search of trouble. And I think really looking back on it, I think all of us had a lot of pent up anger that we wanted to get out. Do you know what I mean? Because like, we were good kids, man.
To be fair as well, like physically, you're a big bloke. Were you always, because what you got to be, what, 6'4",
6'5",
6'5"? Yeah. Did you shoot up early as well?
I was always a big kid, mate.
So everyone always picked you out the crowd, like the head above the crowd.
Always. When I deliver somebody's talk, I say to these people, I can't hide in the crowd. Yeah. I can't. And people want to test you. People want to push your buttons. You know, people want to push their egos are always on the lookout. Give a geezer a drink in the pub and they say a big geezer, the first one I do is go, "What's your like up there, mate?" Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if I knocked you out, would you fall down? And just like, fuck off, man. Come on. Seriously, have a drink and go away. So I was always on edge. Always on edge because I knew there was always somebody that was going to say something or try and push my button or, you know, just do something. So it was never nice. I never had a good time when I went out. So I needed alcohol to release that so that I could relax and I could be a bit more confident, not as on edge. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where the anxiety comes from because I don't know what's on the other side of that door. You know, I needed a drink to get to the door. And then I needed a drink on the other side of the door because I didn't know what to expect. And there's a big walk between pushing that door open and walking to the bar. And it almost like it feels like it goes in slow motion. Everybody's looking at you like this as you walk in and you're trying to soak everything in really quickly, but all you're doing is focusing on getting to that bar. Let me get a quick drink inside me, then I'll have a quick scan around, you know what I mean, and find out where it is and then settle. And remember I was saying to you about getting places, always arriving late? That's the reason why. I didn't want to be the first person. I didn't want to be waiting on my own.
I'm sat here smiling, mate, because like the way you're describing it again, it resonates, and that whole very vivid. I can remember that probably when I was young, probably when I shouldn't have been going in pubs, but exactly that. You wanted to the way it felt when you opened that door was you almost wanted to run to the bar, but you had to pace it. Like, don't walk too fast, don't walk too slow. Don't walk too slow. People are going to notice. You got this weird mid pace, but and then it kind of felt, or I used to feel, that there was this weird like safety bubble at the bar. When you were stood at the bar ordering a drink, you were doing something. Yeah. So it was okay. That was safe, you know? And then, like you say, you take a swig. And then only once you've been to the bar, got the drink, was it okay to take a look around? Because then you've got that drink in your hand, you know? I don't think if you walked into a bar and looked around before going to the bar, inviting trouble then, aren't you?
I'm very, very conscious now. I'm still very conscious. I still see people looking, and it doesn't really bother me now. You know, my people's issues with me are not my issues, so I don't make it my issue anymore. You know, people got an issue with me, it's up to them to come and tell me that. You know, before I would try to please them because I was a people pleaser. So if I could change your perspective of me, I was all right. But it's not my fucking responsibility to do that. Do you know what I mean? As I've got older, I've started to learn that a lot more. Now I'm just kind of like, dude, go and do you. Like, if you've got an issue, write it down. Or come and talk to me as an adult. You know, but if you're going to step to me as a child, I have nothing to say to you. You know, I need to have a conversation with you. I'll give you some context. You know, but these assumptions and issues, they're yours, not mine. Because that's a very, very hard cross to bear. Because you feel it's your responsibility. Because it's normal. It was something you'd always done, something that I'd always done. You know, always done that. And alcohol for me was my best friend.
What age did you start drinking?
I think the first time I ever had a drink, like a proper drink, was when I was sort of like in my early teens. I drunk alcohol. My mum used to have a unit with a pull down flap. You'd go and top stuff up. Again, it was mimicking their behaviour. And I would drink it and it tasted disgusting. And I used to tip it in the plant. You know what I mean? But I felt like that's what I had to do because I'd been given that role to play. So therefore, those associations come with it. And it's weird, right? Because I still get it now. If I'm indoors and Mark says I'm going to the shop, all of a sudden this feeling of a kick comes up. Oh, what can I do that I wouldn't normally do? Because he's not here because I can do it. And it's this feeling that comes up, this trigger that comes in. And I'm like, dude, you're a man. It's your house. What's the matter with you?
Yeah.
I have to tell myself that because it's almost like my brain is like, oh, we've got time. Like, he's gone out. We can do whatever we want to do. What should we do? And it's kind of like, shut up. So I think maybe that's still my inner child that comes out. And it's kind of going, come on, we can be a bit of a rebel here. Sometimes I do act on it, and sometimes I don't. But I just feel sometimes that I lost my train of thought. What was we saying?
Drinking.
The drinking. Oh, yeah. So we used to kind of, I would say about 14, 15, we started going to, we was drinking on corners. We was drinking like getting warm lemonade and vodka out of plastic cups in playgrounds. That's what we used to do.
At least you had cups, mate. That's quite civilised from where I was from.
You lost that cup, that was it. You weren't getting nothing. You know what I mean? But we'd never be able to afford it. We used to go nick it out of the shop. Or we would chip in and then you'd only get you'd be lucky enough that you'd get a cup and everyone else would get half pissed. Do you know, in that sense? And I wasn't really fussed. I just wanted to be accepted. Like, I just wanted to be with my mates. I just wanted them to see me for me. But I wasn't giving them anything either because I was scared that I was going to give them something that they were going to, you know, annihilate me with. And so it was easy to kind of just play a role or a character that they accepted. And, you know, it was easy for me to do that. But
I was school and that for you. Did you get through that okay? Or
school was, you know, I was kind of labelled a disruptor. I was labelled, you know, somebody that was always had something to say. And it's because my learning style was different to everybody else's. I need you to physically show me how to do something. If you write stuff on a board, I'm learning nothing.
Yeah.
I would just copy verbatim. Ask me what it says, I couldn't tell you. You know, but I was creative. So I liked English because I could express myself. And I liked art because I could express myself. And I liked maths because the teacher connected with me. So I was prepared to put the work in. You know, if I connect with somebody, I connect with somebody. And my teacher, he was a Welsh guy called Mr. Fisher. He was only about that big. And mate, he had a mouth on him. You know, I mean, like, it would toe anybody in the line. But he would always say to me, do not ruin this for yourself. He said, you need to tone it down. He said, you could put a bit more effort in and you can actually make something of yourself. But if you don't, and you do what you're doing, you're going to end up going nowhere. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm telling you, you know what I mean? Screw the lid. And school was social. Drinking and smoking in the toilets, you know, went to school with all my mates. Our school was split into two schools. So it was first and second in one school, third, fourth, fifth in the other. When I got to the first year, reputation preceded me. I had no reputation, mate. Right? But because it was a local school in the area and they obviously knew who I was and I was a big lad, you know, the best fighter in the second year, he's going to fight you Tuesday morning, make sure you're there. And I'm like, I didn't better sign up for this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, I didn't fight. I wasn't fighting. You know, I'd walk off and I'd give it the bunny and go. Then when you get into the upper school, third, fourth, fifth and sixth, straight away, the hardest of the third, hardest of the fourth, hardest of the fifth. I'm a big lad, right? Again, the same thing. Wednesday morning, you're fighting so-and-so. I'm like, I ain't fighting anybody. And I had to really gear myself up to have these physical fights with people because I didn't want to have fights. I didn't want to hurt people. I didn't want I didn't want people feeling the way that I felt when my
Yeah.
mum used to beat us. Do you know what I mean? Because wasn't nice. It wasn't nice at all. I liked school until I didn't like it, until I kept getting in trouble, because I was disruptive and I was always kicked out of class. And then I started to realise that people weren't really laughing with me, man. They were laughing at me because they knew what to expect, and I was just mugging myself off. And then I think for me, I started to work. My mum got me a Saturday job when I was 11, so I knew what it was like to have money. And whenever I lost a job, she'll get me another one. She's like, don't think you're staying in bed on a Saturday morning. Like, you're going to work. So I've worked in markets, butchers, and all that sort of stuff. And then my mum started to work at Lord's Cricket Ground. This is when I started to work with her. And I was getting paid good money, like in 6 weeks holiday. Like, I was coming out with like £400 or £500 a week. And I was 14. And I was just giving her my money. And going, I was getting a pair of trainers or something, and she was having the rest of this money. Do you know what I mean? Because it didn't mean anything to me. It had no value. But I knew that by giving it to her, it will go further.
Yeah.
As in it will go on us. But I think it was just, it gave me routine. But I mean, when I got to the third year, I was always hopping school, man. I was always bunking school. I was always sitting on my aunt smoking fags, or taking their kids to school, or looking after their kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was quite homely in that way. Like, if I weren't at school, my mum knew where she would find me. And she weren't really bothered because she knew I was staying out of trouble. And then I left, and then I went back and done sixth form. And then I went and done college because I started to think to myself that I want to make something of myself,
You stayed in academia?
Yeah, I struggle academically with things because I'm good with the creative part, but the practice, I procrastinate a lot. And I talk myself out of a lot of stuff. And I could probably get scared of your own success, do you know what I mean? But for me, it was about working. I wanted to work in the city. I didn't know what it looked like, but I just didn't want to be working in the area that I lived in. And I wanted to work in the city, and I knew I had to get a qualification of some sort. And I started to temp in the city when I was about 19. I started to apply for like these random jobs all over the place. I even applied for jobs to be receptionist because I didn't care about starting at the bottom. It didn't bother me, do you know what I mean? Because I thought if I started at the bottom, I was learning everything all the way up, so I knew everything rather than just one specific thing. So I had a lot more strings to my bow. And I learned quite quickly as well, especially with good teachers, because I wanted to impress, because I was a people pleaser. You know what I mean? If I'm making them smile and making them happy, I'm doing good. That's positive feedback from me, mate. You know what I mean? That's positive reinforcement. It's quite detrimental as well. But again, I didn't know this sort of stuff. And I also knew there was something really different about me, and I didn't know what that was. So working in town, I started to get exposed to different people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different genders, different sexualities, and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? And then I think when I was about 21, 22, I came out as gay. Mate, I didn't want to be gay. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to be married. I didn't want kids. I didn't want the house and all that sort of stuff. I just wanted to be happy, but I didn't know what that looked like or what that felt like. Because I was always a miserable kid. You know what I mean? But coming out as gay was hard because in that time and that environment, gay people weren't seen in a good light. And I didn't want to be one of those people. It was hard enough being me as I was. Now to add that to it,
It's a hell of a conflict, mate, isn't it?
Yeah.
To come out as something that you don't want to be. That's a deep one, mate.
And I had mine flat. I had my little thing going on, and I was happy. But when I stopped and really thought about it, I wasn't. I was really quite miserable, and I was really quite sad. And now there's this new part of me that I had to introduce myself to, which scared me because it meant being around men, and which was just a no-no for me.
Of course, yeah. So you've grown up your whole childhood with a negative image around men, and then you realise that on a attraction level, on a sexual level, that men is your direction. Oh, mate, that's a head fucking out.
Mate, tell me about it. So again, alcohol was my friend, man. It would come to the rescue. And I was puffing at the time as well. So I'd stay in rather than go out. So I was quite happy staying indoors, watching films, smoking joints, going to work. I was happy with that, but I still had a longing to be with somebody.
Yeah.
Longing to share and understand and be part of. And someone to give me a cuddle and look after me and take care of me and make sure that I was all right and saying, Lee, do you want a cup of tea? And blah, all that sort of stuff. Like, I wanted to know what that felt like. I had this house that I'd built that I was ready to share with somebody, but I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know how that felt. And also I was thinking to myself, now that I'm gay, it's like, what does that look like for me? What are my friends and my family going to say about this? How are they going to take it? How's my life going to change? So I knew the minute that I said that word and I admitted that, my life was going to change anyway. It had to change.
Did anyone have a clue beforehand?
No. Listen, when I told my mates I was gay, right, do you know what they said to me? Mate, we thought you was trying to nick our missus. Because I'd always sit with the girls and chat with the girls. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was like, we always thought that he was trying to get their phone numbers. He was trying to get in their drawers. He was all, I was like, no, man, I just felt uncomfortable sitting with you lot.
In fairness, mate, there are some people, aren't there, that are very obviously gay.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell the minute they open their mouth. You are not one of those. Like,
No.
I knew you were, like, prior to today. I've heard you talk about it before. I've heard you talk about it on podcasts. But I wouldn't have known without you saying, I guess, is what I'd say.
Yeah.
And I mean, you shouldn't speculate whether somebody is or isn't. It really doesn't matter.
No.
But yeah, I guess that was why I asked that question, really, was did anyone know?
No, because I didn't want to be that version of gay. If I was going to be me, I wanted to be me. I'd always battled to be me. So I wanted to make sure that it was my version of that, because why not? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to conform.
Yeah.
But at the same time, but I couldn't be that version. That wasn't comfortable for me. Do you know? It wasn't comfortable for me. I wasn't that kind of one that would kind of click my fingers and do all that sort of stuff. I do it a lot now because I don't give a toss and it's quite comfortable and it's funny. But overall, the person that you see sitting in front of you now is who I am. In that sense.
Such a massive internal conflict, mate. I'm trying to get my head around it now while we're talking. How did it play out?
And here's the thing, right, is that when you come out and and I was working in town and I started to work with other gay people and other people that were from the LGBTQ plus community and things like that, you know what I mean? You can see certain things, especially with men. Men will try it on, man. Like, they will try it on because they want them to be your first.
Right.
I had dudes come up to me and I was like, I wouldn't even stick you to the wall, you know what I mean? But fair play.
Yeah.
Like, fair play, because they just... I remember years ago, right, just quickly going off track, I remember years ago, one of our old friends, old boy called Peter, and he used to say, and he wasn't the best looking bloke in the world, but he had balls. Like, literally, he didn't give a toss. He said, you can ask 10 people. He said, I guarantee you, he said, one person will say yes. And I was like, is that how you see it? And he's like, yeah. He's like, that's how I see it. And it's it can be any world can be shallow, but when you're in that, it's very, from my experience, this is, it's very sexual on a level that everything's got an innuendo to it, and I can do the innuendos, but when it comes to the actual the reality part of it, I'm like, oof, I'm on my toes and I'm off because I don't know how I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And sexually, sex was a taboo in our house. We've never spoke about it. The TV was turned over, and love was never a word that was banned about in our house, and cuddles and all that sort of stuff. It was never banned. So we were very naive sexually, very, very naive. So you can imagine going out into a world where you're going, okay, I need to find somebody that I'm able to become physical with, but I don't know what that looks like. And I remember the first time I went out to a club, and I went out with a couple of my little sisters' mates, because they were the only gay people that I knew. And dude, if you looked at these, you know they were gay.
Yeah.
And you know they were gay. Do you know what I mean? But I was like, this is my doorway. This is my gateway. I had to take my opportunity. And I remember going out this one Saturday night to a club called Benji's in East London. And I remember turning around and my little sister walked into the club. And I was like, fuck. Fuck, what do I do here? So I remember running up to her and going, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. I went up, met these. They said they were going out clubbing. They said, didn't tell me they was going here. And I just come with them. And she was like, don't worry. She went, stay with me. Bless her. Do you know what I mean? So I managed to stole that one out. And I remember I went out to a club one night and I met this guy. And I remember going, I don't even know what I said to this guy. I don't know what he said to me. And I remember we walked back to his hotel in Lancaster Gate, it was. And I remember the next morning phoning my friend and I said to her, like, I've done it. And it was the most natural thing I'd ever done in my life. The most natural thing. And I knew from that moment then, that I was gay, mate. You know what I mean? Like, I lied to them. I wasn't making no bones about that. But it was just like how that worked for me. It really was. And then it was about, how do I start telling my friends and my family and all that sort of stuff. My mum loved the fact that she had a gay son.
Yeah.
She loved it, man. She loved the fact that she had a gay son, that she had like a gay son she could go shopping with. But she did say to me though, right, years ago, Russ, that she was scared. She was scared for a couple of reasons. Number one, she was scared that, you know, how people would take me, people's opinions on me, you know, whether she was going to be fighting people because of how they perceive me and their, you know, how they see gay people. And also the fact that she wasn't going to get any grandkids from her only son. And I wasn't going to carry the name on because at that time I was the only Anderson. So it would have been up to me to carry that kind of name on, you know. And I never really saw it from her perspective.
I take it Anderson. Is that your mum's name?
That was my mum's name.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I was in that sense, and so I was like, I didn't really see that, but she was just kind of like, look, I want you to be happy. My mum always said to the three of us, I just want you to be happy, but I don't know what I think she really meant was I don't want you to struggle like I did. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I know that happiness is just pockets in time. That's what they are, you know what I mean? They're just moments in time that we take and we're part of it and we understand how it makes us feel. That's the happiness, you know what I mean? Nothing is linear. You know, happiness isn't an everyday thing. It's a thing that we feel because we've done something that's organically happened. We're around people or with people that make us feel that way.
So you don't believe it's possible to be permanently happy?
No way. Because you can't control people that come into your life. You can't control the outside things that go on. You know, I could get up on them with a big smile on my face, but then someone could text me and go, bang, and that will completely change it. Because it's all a feeling, ain't it? It's based on a feeling. And that feeling then will tell us what our mind's saying, what our thoughts are. And then that will then dictate our behaviour. So it's that loop. If I feel like shit, I'm going to start thinking shitty things. I'm going to start acting in a shitty way. My behaviour is going to dictate that. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. But I can tell myself how to respond to stuff rather than react to stuff. Whereas before I would just react against everything and take everything personal, everything literally, you know, in that sense. And it's only been over the last sort of like 4 or 5 years that I've actually really started to understand that actually I can control my narrative. Like I can control what I'm saying in my head to myself. You know, I was always a really horrible bastard to myself.
So the really important thing, mate, isn't it? Because it's one of those statements that I'm about to make that only makes sense if you understand it, but you are not your thoughts.
No.
Like that is, it's a hard one to explain to people as well. Don't know whether you've got a better way of explaining it than me, but it is a difficult thing to try and explain to somebody that your thoughts are not you and that your brain quite often can work against you because then you're separating your thoughts from yourself. It's a hard concept I find it quite hard to vocalize that concept. I mean, I know you know what I'm getting
I know
at.
exactly what you're saying. I totally get what you mean. You know, it's like our brain is set up to protect us, right? And our thoughts are things that have happened. And then what we do is we start to build on them. We start to emotionally connect to them. And when we start to emotionally connect to them thoughts, we bring them to life. And then what we do is you go and look for evidence to back it up. I remember back in blah, 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 you know, this happened. That actually made me feel the same way. Okay, so there's a bit of evidence right there. You know what I mean? Someone said something to me back in 1996, and that feeling is still the same thing. Because that's our brain collecting those thoughts, looking for those patterns and going, oh, this matches that. But it's not, because it's not happened yet. Yeah, so we project into the future based on what's happened in the past. So we start to create it based around that feeling. And so our thoughts in our head, we don't go, I would like to do this. What we do is we go, well, I'm thinking this, so this must happen. I know this is going to happen because that's what's going on in my brain. You know, my brain would always work against me, and I believe it because I've got the thoughts to back it up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's that question, mate, isn't it? Who are we if we are not our thoughts? Because when I picture that, if I am not my thoughts, then what? Then my thoughts surely are what makes me who I am. If I am not my thoughts, what am I? I'm just, am I emptiness? Like stillness? Just.
But are your thoughts your actions?
Well, no.
All right.
No.
So
thankfully for most of the public, no.
Right. So then what actions? What is it that promotes your actions?
I guess, again, that comes down to your internal dialogue, doesn't it? So your thoughts, but this is it. You can argue with yourself, can't you? Within your mind, you can have a thought and then you talk yourself out of that thought. And somewhere along the negotiation process within becomes, you know, you sort of negotiate your own thoughts down to what become your actions.
Right. But that's a decision first.
Yes.
Because you need to give yourself a choice.
Yeah.
Some of us, we just go from that thought and then bang to the action.
Yeah.
It's an automatic thing. Just that's it, I don't care. But then what you do is, or what I've learned is to give myself a choice.
Yeah.
Like what's going to happen, what I believe is going to happen, and what I want's going to happen. what I want to happen. Right, so which do I choose? Okay, so what do I want to happen? You know, I want to be able to come here, have a good conversation with you, you know what I mean, and then leave and feel good because, you know, I feel like I've added a bit of value. Before I would have gone, oh, I don't know what to say. It's all going to come out like this. So I'm now starting to attach myself to that because I've chosen that now.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm going, actually, you know, come on, I just want to come and chill, meet him, have a conversation, see what comes out. There's no expectation there. So you've taken away that pressure now. They're your actions. Your actions are going, this is what I'm going to do in order to get this outcome.
Yeah.
So it's a decision. But I use this analogy a lot. Right? When we're kids, we are taught we're taught to tie our shoelaces. And what we do is we do it over and over and over and over again. If you tie your shoelaces, big boys tie their shoelaces by themselves, do they? Right, they are. There's the carrot. I want to be a big boy. I want to tie my own shoelace. You don't think of how many times you've got to do it, how many times you're going to get it wrong. You want to be a big boy, right? There's your objective right there, is to tie your own shoelaces. So you practice and you practice and you practice and you practice. Even if you've got your shoes on the wrong feet, it don't matter, right? It's all about tying your shoelaces. And that becomes to a point, it becomes automatic. I can tie my shoelaces now while I'm having a cup of tea and I'm on the phone because I know what I'm doing. It's a practice. And that's what it does. Everything is a practice. It comes down to how much you practice and how much you believe into that sort of thing till it becomes an automatic thing. And that's like any decision that we make. Anything that we do, if it's backed up and it's reinforced, whether it's a good or a bad thing, it becomes an automatic response.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think separating that thought from action is the key, isn't it? We touched on this earlier when I mentioned, you know, that my reactions to my, say, abandonment as a child are still there. The thought is still there.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The thoughts still exist, but I've now explored those thoughts, conditioned them, or conditioned myself to have that moment where I go, okay, there's the thought, but here's the counter argument. And in the middle, we meet, I discard that and I take action on the rational thought, I guess, rather than the emotive, you know, instant reaction to the thought, which is where I'd have been at myself in my younger years. I don't know how do you even advise people on that, to look within, you know, the reason behind your actions?
So going back to the abandonment thing, so I'm still working through a lot of the abandonment stuff at the moment because I am, you know, I've been married now for like nearly 11 years. And I've been in a relationship for 15 with Mark, you know, and I love him dearly. You know, he's a good man. But the feeling that I have sometimes, just by maybe a slight change in his behaviour, a slight word difference will trigger my feeling. And I'm like, shit, he's going to leave me. Right? And then the thoughts start. Because it's based on that feeling. I can think that and go, don't be a dickhead, Lee, what's the matter with you? But if that feeling's in there, man, I can't shake that off.
Yeah.
Right, so what I do is I recognise it. And I say to him, this is how I'm feeling. Are you going to leave me? And he's like, no. But that's my inner child telling me, I need you to reassure me of that. Right? I could tell my inner child all day long. Right? But now I have to go and find facts. I have to find a fact. The fact is, I'm having these feelings because I've been triggered by something. So now I need to kind of soothe it. I need to reassure it. I need to tell it. You know, before Christmas, I had a complete burnout, mate. I hit the wall. I wasn't doing anything for myself. I wasn't giving myself what I needed. Do you know what I mean? I was just thinking, let me get to the end of the year. I've got 2 weeks off and I can save it for that. I didn't make it that far. I peeled off a tour with Rob and I came home. But this day, I had a complete fucking meltdown in the Airbnb, and I remember phoning in Mark, and I thought, I can't phone him, because if I phone him, I'm going to let rip at him, but I can't help myself. And I phoned him and let rip at him, and I said to him, I'm leaving you, and all this sort of stuff like that, and just all these feelings were coming out, and I had to verbalise them, because you can't rationalise irrational thoughts in an irrational mind. Right? They don't make sense. No matter what you do to try and rationalise them, you can't. You have to verbalise them. You have to get them out. And I remember I had a couple of days for my flight and I flew home and I had nothing booked in because I was on tour and I had a whole week to myself. And I remember taking my dog out for a walk and I was like, you need to speak to this man. You need to sit down and talk to this man and help this man understand what it's like in your head. Because I'll just give him tidbits. And he's so completely opposite to me. You know, he's very black and white. Very, very black and white, which is good because it keeps me grounded. And I remember saying to him, you know, I just have this fear that because I love you so much and we've built so much that you're just going to get up and walk away. You know what I mean? And I can't get rid of that feeling. I don't believe you will do that, right? But I just need you to reassure me every now and again without even me asking you. I need you to do this for me. And he was like, well, what's the matter? You know, I love you. I know I'm not going to leave you. I was like, those words don't mean nothing to me, right? I need you to tell me naturally, without me asking you, just to reassure me. That's what I need from you. So you reevaluate the relationship. You reevaluate where you are, and you tell that person how you need them to show up for you. I need you to show up for me like this, in this capacity. This is what I need. I need reassurance. But you're a grown-ass man. I don't care. You know, I'm telling you what I need, and I need you to listen. I need you to hear that, because it's really, really important. Otherwise, I will start to pull away.
Do you know what? There's like, I'm sat here completely resonating with what you're saying, 100%. But which means there'll be a lot of other people listening doing exactly the same, because, yeah. I mean, I think abandonment issues are huge. Like, there's such a common denominator in that. There's a lot of people that go through that as kids. There's a lot of broken families out there. I mean, to give you context, because I keep mentioning that, I understand. So when I was 8 years old, my mum and dad split up, but my mum left, which is relatively rare. She'd had an affair. She left the house. She left me and my younger sister at the time with my father, and then she went off. And it was a period of time, I think it's hard, isn't it? Because everything seems like years when you're a kid. I want to say it was a few months that I went from seeing my mum every day to she was gone. And all I got told as a kid was, yeah, she ran off with another man. Essentially, she don't want you kids no more. She's gone. Ironically, my mum took the family dogs and left the kids. So
Really?
yeah, she left me and my sister and my father. She'll love me for saying all this now. But that was how it happened. And that, to me, mate, was catastrophic at 8 years old, because I'd also then got my father, who was not, his generation, same thing. Don't talk about feelings. We don't talk about it. Pretended he was okay all the way through. Didn't really talk to me. Certainly nobody ever asked me how I felt. There was nobody ever took me to the side. And that was the beginning of my abandonment, because although my mum came back into my life afterwards, once she'd settled down with this other chap, that relationship was irreconcilable. What's that word? What I'm looking for?
Irreconcilable.
Irreconcilable. That was it. It was broken. There was a massive fracture running through it, because to me, she'd gone. And that period of time where she wasn't in contact completely changed my relationship with her. And I stayed with my dad all the way through. So I lived with my dad. My sister, after maybe a year, moved in with my mum, and we had this split family then. So I stayed with my dad. My dad was a drinker. And my mum was always at arm's length, possibly partially because of me, because I rejected her new partner wholeheartedly. That never got mended. So I've then gone through my adult life with fear of abandonment from women. So kind of the opposite from you. What I had to process and what I've recognised is I craved that. I guess best way I can describe it, because of my abandonment issues, recognised control as love. So I sought out control because that felt like love to me, because that meant that they weren't going to leave. But I also resented control. So I had this fucked up, like, don't tell me what to do. I hate being told what to do. I needed the control to feel secure, but at the same time, I hated control. So there was a lot to process, mate. And as you can imagine, without going into my story, there was a lot of behaviour that came from that. But I'm still dealing a little bit like you in my relationship now, which I've got a great relationship with my wife. And I have these kind of conversations with her where I'm like, my abandonment issues have got this permanent fear. Same as you. I've always got that fear that things are going too good, she's going to leave. And logically, there's no reason whatsoever where I should feel that this relationship's going to end and she's going to leave. But underneath it all, there's always that fear. It's never gone away. I've never reached a point, I don't think, where I've thought this is comfortably forever. Because somewhere in the back of here, there's one day she's going to leave. One day it's going to, fold. Because, like I say, my mother left me as a child, and that's put that little worm in here now, which I can now recognise. So that's the thing. A little bit like you pick up on things in a relationship and you start to go, that seemed a bit off. That message seemed a bit off. And then that's it. My head goes. Same thing, like that little thing that seems a bit strange, a bit off. And it might be because she's just had a row with a customer at work, but I'll take it as, that seemed a bit strange. And that initial thought then gets control of me and goes from here to way over there. And by the time I see her in the evening, I'm like, are we okay? And she's like, the fuck are you on about?
I'm not even thought about you today,
I'd just like the kettle had boiled. I wanted to go make a cup of tea kind of thing. And it is, mate, it's a learning curve for me. It's a learning curve for her. Same thing, any relationship, she's got her demons too.
Yeah.
So it's then working each other out and battling through it. But having that level of maturity, I guess, to recognise those thoughts and emotions, it has been a complete life changer for me. Which, I just wanted to share that with you.
Well,
so you saw, because I can sit here going, I understand, I resonate, I understand. But just to share with you that's why, that's like my sort of background as to why I'm scratching the surface. But yeah, we're very similar in different ways. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I appreciate you sharing that, mate. You know what I mean? It does add a bit of context, and it's nice to expand on it sometimes as well. Especially when people are listening and watching, because, as I said at the beginning, we only know what we know. So we look around us to fill in the gaps or to expand our knowledge or our understanding or our awareness. And not everything applies to everybody, not like one size fits all. It doesn't.
Look what you've got there. You've got my situation and your situation, which are very different but the same. And what you've then got is a pattern behaviour that you show and I show related to that same sort of childhood trauma and abandonment as it was. And that just proves that it's worth looking into.
Yeah.
Because if we've exhibited some of the same thought patterns and behaviours,
So here's the fucked up thing about that, right, is that when I start to feel that, I start to plot my escape. And I can start again. I can do it on my own. I've done it on my own before. It doesn't matter. Right? So I'm doing exactly what she made other people do. Is, well, just get up and leave and walk away. I don't need them. I can do it on my own. You convince yourself of that you can survive by yourself because I was born to survive. I was taught how to survive. You're in this constant state of fight or flight. You know what I mean? Constantly, always on the go, making sure that you've got everything that you need and you keep moving, 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 and it becomes fucking exhausting.
Yeah.
It really, really does. So in my head, I'm just thinking, the worst thing that happens, then we'll just sell the house and I'll just go and buy a smaller house somewhere else and blah, blah. I'm having this in my head. I'm building this whole narrative in my head purely based on one little thing that had triggered me, thinking that he was going to leave. So that's how fucked up it is.
Mate, I'm smiling because I know exactly what you fucking mean. I have, to the extent in the past, I've sort of like minor arguments. I have sat there and gone on Rightmove for exactly that. I'm like, right, well, if this isn't going to work, then I might as well. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what
so,
you mean.
Yeah, I completely am with you, mate.
Yeah.
I've never said that before on camera, so she is actually going to fuck. But yeah, that's. But yeah, I know 100% where you're at with it, Lee. Yeah. And that's. I always say to people when I talk, I'm like, I'm an overthinker because I see it. I pull the thread down here, and by the time I've got it out of my head, there's this big ball of wool that's all fucking tangled and my thoughts have gone, I've gone from, I best start looking for a house. Oh, actually, would I rather live in a house or should I just look at getting a boat now? Do you know what? Actually, I can get a mobile home. I'll just go nomad and do this. And by the end of it, I've forgotten why I'm looking at it, but I'm on Auto Trader looking at mobile homes.
Going to Airbnb, so I can do 6 months here, 6 months there. Yeah. Deal. But they take dogs, do you know what I mean?
After a couple of hours, I've forgotten why.
Yeah.
I'll just start looking at it and I'll turn around to the missus then and go, it's in these motorhomes. She's like, why the fuck are you looking at motorhomes? Well, I can't tell you because it was probably because I thought, an hour ago, I thought you were probably going to leave. So I'm now looking at it. But yeah, it's madness, mate.
You get consumed by the feeling. You really do. And I really struggle to shake that off. Like I said to you, I find it difficult to regulate my emotions anyway because they consume me. If I see something, if someone tells me something, right, even though it's secondhand, so the facts happened, now they're telling me their version of that event, right, and I'm invested in that event. And that event now is making me feel like this, so I can feel my fists going, and I can feel like what I would do and how I would react and what I would say. This is secondhand knowledge of someone else's business that I wasn't even part of, that they're just telling me. But this is how intense it gets in my body. You know what I mean? And I can feel this, and I'm like, and I find that really difficult for me to shake it off. And it's not even my business. Like, if I'll see things on TV and I'll get fully invested in it, and I'm like, I have to get up and walk away and really compose myself.
Considering what you do, mate, that's a very interesting thing because I don't think we've touched on it yet, but the work, obviously, you work alongside Rob, who's sat round the corner doing a bit of work. Rob from the MYH podcast, big shout out over there. But you guys work together at Lighthouse Club, so you take on a hell of a lot of other people's emotions and thought process and that. So for you to say that you get that invested, like how does that work?
Well, because that's work, right? And I have
Right.
very, very, very fixed, firm boundaries there. Okay, I'm there to facilitate. I'm not there to save. I'm not there to fix. I'm there to empower. I'm there to point and put people in the direction and signpost them, show them what the facilities are, how they work, what they look like, the structure of it, how it works for them. That's what I'm there. So when people, and don't get me wrong, right, people will disclose to us stuff that they've kept locked away all their life, but they've been given a space where they feel trusted, and they'll give it to us. And you can't turn them people away. You listen. You give them that space. Some people just need that, right? And they're good. And some people need more. That for them is them just pushing that box open a little bit more. But the boundaries come into play, and then you empower them. And you go, okay, this is what you need to do. This is my suggestion for you. This is what I think you need to do. This is what your next step is in that sense. I could have easily taken on other people's problems, and they would have hooked into mine. They would have become my problems, and I would have been weighed down and overwhelmed with other people's issues. That's not my role. My role is to facilitate. So when people were telling us, and they go to them, okay, so what do you need from me? That's them now thinking for themselves. Actually, what do I need? Okay, I need some help. Okay, cool. We can get that help. What does it look like to you? So now you're starting to ask the questions.
Right.
You're starting to pull a little bit more. Well, I don't know. Okay, so out of those things you told me, what is the most important thing for you to focus on right now? I don't know. I think I just want someone to talk to. Okay, well, you just spoke to me. Like, you've just told me something that you probably held on to for most of your life, and I'm so proud of you for doing that. Right, so proud of you for it, because I know how hard that was for you. So now I'm empowering them, because I'm telling them what they're doing is the right thing to do. I'm encouraging them to, to go take it a bit further. Because 9 times they can be shot down. 9 times out of 10, look, when you get a snail and it puts its head out and you pop it in, it goes, woo, and it recoils in. That's what we do. Because we don't know what we're going to get when we tell people what we're thinking or what we're feeling. We just feel that might be ammunition that's used against us. So it's easier for us to say, fuck all, shut up, wipe our mouths, put our masks on and carry on. But when you're in front of somebody and somebody's going, well, tell me what you think you need to do. Tell me how you think I'm going to fit into this. Tell me what it is that you need from me. Then they're starting to think about the next step forward. Okay, I think I might need to speak to somebody. All right, cool. Well, we can do that for you. All you got to do is find a number on the back of the card. And then this is what happened. And you'll tell them what happens and how simple it is. Fill out a bit of paperwork, send it back, and then the caseworker will call you, and then that's it. You're in. They will look after you, and then you'll get all the support that you need. And I've had, and Rob will tell you the same thing though. We get people that will come up and they'll disclose things to us, and they go, mate, I don't need anything else. I just needed to tell you that. Like, thanks for listening. And you're like, mate, you're welcome. And I'm lucky because I'm part of their aftercare team as well, so I do a lot of their life coaching. So I get to see some of these guys that come in. Some of the guys that we've spoken to and stood in front of us and listened to our talks, and they've gone, you helped me. By listening to you talking, I rung the helpline and I got the help that I needed. Do you know what I mean? And now I'm sitting in front of you and I want to say thanks. And I'm like, mate, I didn't do that. You was listening to me. You was giving me time. You was making me feel seen. You was making me feel heard. You was making me feel valid. You were helping me heal. The byproduct of that was the fact that you got the strength to reach out. Do you know what I mean? And again, you're still paying it back to them. You did that. I didn't do the work. And now you're sitting in front of me. It's like, okay, so where do we go now? What do you want now? It's like, okay, I just want to have a bit of direction. And then we'll work on where they want to be in 12 months' time. And people think it's very simple to sit down and plan 12 months' time. Oh, I want to hit this goal and I hit that goal. All right. But then let's just look at it properly. How's it going to make you feel? What are you going to give up? What are you going to sacrifice? How's it going to change your life? How's it going to fit into the way that your life is right now? And they go, well, I don't know. I thought it would just be. It's like, no, mate. Lifestyle changes means change of lifestyle, which means that you have to start letting go of stuff. Because, when you go on holiday, remember the first time you went on holiday and you pack everything because you need it just in case? That's like life. We hold on to everything because just in case. I'll sit there and I go, right, get your case out. Just open your case. Just have a look through it, have a little rummage. Do you still need that? Do you still need that? Do you still need that? Here's your limiting beliefs there. Do you reckon you can push them a bit further? You know what I mean? There's your learned behaviours. Are they serving you now? Okay, so what's your values? What's your core values? Who are you? What's your character like? Because we lose ourselves. We lose ourselves underneath labels. You know, someone's brother, someone's husband, someone's, you know, dad, someone's cousin, someone's work colleague, someone's boyfriend. You know, and we don't even get to pick our fucking own name. You know, we're given that name, and we need to figure shit out. And we can't do that on our own. We don't have that emotional capacity to deal with that on our own. And so we need someone to sit there and go, can you help me? And it's like, so I dig. I ask questions, you know what I mean? And I go, you just said that. Did you hear what you just said? And he's like, no. He's like, okay, so what you just said, did you mean that? It's like, well, what I mean was this. It's like, yeah, but you said that. So we don't become aware of it because it's so normal for us because no one ever questions it. We will argue about what you said, but we'll never talk about what you meant because it never comes up because we're too busy focusing on what you said and how that made me feel. And then now that's become about me. It's not become about you anymore. So then that problem or that issue that you had is still there because now you're dealing with my shit because of what you said. And then it all starts to go all over the place and it starts to get confusing. But when you've got one person sitting in front of you, listening to you and feeding back to you and saying to you, okay, how about you try and say it like this? How about we try and change your delivery? How about we try to give you some words and change in your language? How about we start to say some positive things about ourselves? You know, when we introduce ourselves, like the elevator spill, when you're in an elevator and you introduce yourself and you tell people you've got 30 seconds, you know, you don't go, I'm do so. It's kind of like, okay, what are your qualities? Who are you? You know, what do you offer? You know, in that sense, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people are their jobs. You know, who are you? Oh, my name's Russ, you know, and I run a podcast. That's not who you are, is it? That's just your name and a hobby. Yeah? It's like, oh, I'm Russ, I've got a podcast and I'm painting a decorator. And still not who you are. You know, that's your name, your hobby, and your job. Do you understand what I mean?
I do, mate. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
but we don't know that because
Yeah.
it's just socially accepted and we never question it.
People tend to, they build their whole identity around those labels, don't they? Like you just said, it's what makes you you, and they think that your identity becomes you. But people have multiple identities, i.e., you know, to my wife, I'm her husband. To my son, I'm his father. To my customer, I'm the decorator.
Right.
To you right now, I'm the podcast host.
Right.
And these are all parts of an identity,
They're
but
roles.
none of it
They're
makes
roles.
me who I am.
Right, but they're roles that you're playing.
Yeah. But a lot of people will fixate on that.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and like you just said, if you ask somebody to introduce themselves, generally they will give you their job description and possibly their relationship status.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
oh, I'm married. I'm a bricklayer. Okay.
But if you ask people what's important to you, it's a completely different question. You get a completely different answer because it's something that you feel. Right?
Yeah.
It's that emotional connection.
Don't you think, though, Lee, again, I mean, you know, society's got a little bit of a part to play here because the general opening questions that you will ask somebody, you know, I would imagine most conversations, if I met my mates today, if I went to the pub or went out for food with them, sat there, how you doing, mate? Yeah, I'm good. Work, how's work? Busy? First question, work, are you busy?
Yeah.
As if that's priority one. I don't think I've ever been asked by a friend, how's it go, mate? You happy? You happy in life? Like, how are you feeling?
That's the one, mate. That's the key right there, okay, is you ask somebody, how you feeling? Because you're asking that person a direct question for them to sit there and think about it and go, actually, do you know what? I'm feeling quite good today. Oh, really? Like, why? Right, so that conversation's now starting on that level. Do you know what I mean? When they go, actually, do you know what, today's a really shit day. Mate, you know what? I've got time. Do you want to talk about it? Do you know what I mean? Or you go, actually, I haven't got time, but do you know what, mate? I'm interested. So tell me, is there anything I can help you with?
It's conditioning, mate, isn't it? I think we're conditioned to ask these questions that don't really mean anything. And I think a big part of that is because we're actually too scared to get the answer. Because like what you just said there, how are you feeling? Do you know what, mate? I'm feeling pretty shit. Have I got the time now to deal with the answer I've just received from that question? Have you actually got the time now? Or are you in a rush? Do you know what I mean? It's 2 minutes. You know, I've got a 30-second convo here. I've got to be somewhere. And we live such fast-paced lives now. You know, and time is such a rare commodity for a lot of people, or they believe it's so. And it's that asking the questions, but do you really want to hear the answer? And I think to bring about any actual positive change around the way that we deal with that, there's got to be so many different changes behind it, because it's being able to ask you how you're feeling, but also being able to, if you say this, have I got time to process that? Because what I think one of the worst things, particularly as men, one of the worst things to happen is that you do open the box and then you get any level of rejection, because that is going to set you so far back. You
That's
know,
the one, yeah. Trust is a big thing. Trust is a big, big thing for me, mate.
and people can have that trust broken quite, without somebody thinking. I mean, you turn around to somebody, how you feeling? Not feeling great, mate. Oh, listen, man up, yeah? It's not that bad, is it? Come on, let's have a beer, and that's it. You don't realise, like, the person saying that is probably thinking, oh, I don't really want to hear the answer. I've given a solution. Man up. There's a great solution for you. Let's move on. But they don't realise that that's a rejection.
It is. It's a massive fuck off pill, mate.
Yeah.
I coach and I mentor based on what I never had. Right now, I've got qualifications coming out of my arse, but my experience is what helps people because I know how it felt for me. I'm very empathetic. Like I said to you, man, I can feel people. Like, I feel people's body language change. I feel people's energy, all that sort of stuff. I feel it, but I can see people sometimes struggling to formulate a sentence or to articulate the way that they're feeling. And I go, can I just share? Do you mind if I just kind of nick a little bit of your time and disclose to you? And they go, yeah. And then I'll try to pick up. And then what I'll do is I'll give them an example of something that I went through that I feel was quite similar to what they're trying to put words to. Not that I'm putting words into their mouth, but I'm letting them know that it's safe, right? That they can trust me, that I'm not going to judge them. And I too have been through something similar myself. Which means then they're going, actually, and then maybe there might be words that I've used that they can then formulate to make a sentence of their own, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're just passing on knowledge, mate, right? I'm giving the knowledge that I've used to help me to help you. What you do with that is entirely up to you. I have no right to keep that knowledge or that education or that understanding or that awareness. It's not mine to keep.
Do you know what, though, man? Like having people like you, one, it's a real skill. But having people like you out there, there's far too few. There's far too few listeners out there when there's so many people that need to talk.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that, again, it's a big, massive out there statement, but as a society, I think we need to put more value on the power of being able to listen. There's so many horrific statistics, particularly around construction at the moment, but just in general, and no real talk on action to take. And I've never, ever heard anyone sit down and say at a policy or governmental level or anything and go, do you know what is the problem? There's nobody listening. There's nobody that's trained, or we don't put... A lot of people say things like, oh, you need to talk.
To who?
Exactly. But, well, okay, well, if there's this amount of people that need to talk, then there's an equal amount of people that need to listen.
Exactly.
But when do people ever talk about the benefits of being able to receive that conversation and how to handle it? It was a massive eye-opener for me, mate. I hadn't got a clue whatsoever. I mean, my personal eye-opener was volunteering at Samaritans, which was a bizarre experience at first because I didn't even realise when I signed up to do it that it's a listening service. My initial thing was, well, that's all right, because if I get somebody ring up, I'll just say this. And then it dawned on me that you can't. Yeah. And to be told, when I first started my training, they were like, it's a skill you need to develop. And I'm thinking, I can listen. Anyone can listen. No, I can hear.
You can hear.
Everyone can hear. But once I understood the difference between hearing and listening, wow, and then you start to recognize it. You start to recognize where and the power in it when you're having a conversation, and you felt it yourself. If you have a conversation with somebody that genuinely listens, there's such power to that. But if you're having a conversation with somebody that's just hearing you, you don't feel heard, do you? You don't feel listened to. You don't feel. You just, if anything, it's another rejection, as I say.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. There's lots of people out there, counsellors, coaches, therapists that are trained to listen and also trained to hear and trained to speak in that sense, but more so to give people that space where they can hear themselves thinking and then listen to themselves speak, right? Because a lot of the time we listen to what's going on in our head, and it's based and swirling around those words and those sentences is all the other shit that goes with it. And sometimes it's so difficult to separate them. Do you understand what I mean? But when you say things out loud and you go, fucking hell, that sounded better in my head. Actually, that sounded worse in my head. because you verbalized it then. Like, you've brought it out, it's come out, it's there, it's tangible. You're just like, okay, then you can deal with it in that sense. And there is a skill to it. I think, there's no better person than somebody that's healing, because they know what it feels like. And then they can say to you, you know what, man, you get over that rock and, it's a bit more of a better path.
There's a great analogy, mate, that, again, I can't take credit for. Samaritans talk about it all the time, but they talk about the process of talking and listening, and they use the analogy of a washing basket full of clothes.
Yeah.
Have you heard it?
Maybe something similar, but
so essentially they talk about people's thoughts being like a washing basket full of clothes, yeah? So it's just come out of the wash, it's gone straight in, the basket's all jumbled up. The process of talking about it and having somebody listen is like taking each garment out, folding it, ironing it, stacking it. And by the end of that process, you take out all those garments, you fold them, you stack them, you fold them, you stack them. By the end of the conversation, you've took all the garments out of the basket. They're still there. You haven't took any garments away, but they're now neatly stacked and organised. And you can just, even the thought of that, a jumbled up basket compared to a folded basket, it's just organising your thoughts, and then you look at it and it all just looks different.
Yeah.
Same things, same issues, they're all still there. And that's how, within Samaritans and the training, they talk about, and I've lived that throughout all the shifts that I did with them. And you can see one of the beauties is, because you're not allowed to give advice, you have to listen. So you start picking up on different things. You start picking up on the tone of the voice, all these little sort of, again, because that person's not sat in front of you. So you have to hone in on the voice, the tone, the words, all that kind of thing. Even the speed that they're talking when they first ring up, it's all very like rah, 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 rah. And by the end of the conversation, they've said it all, and now they're talking like this. And it's all more, you haven't fixed anything, but just that process of talking and the power, like you said, just vocalizing it and putting those thoughts and words out, and then being able to reorganize it. It works, man.
Yeah, it's very cathartic for a lot of people. I used to do a lot of this in person. So, going back to working at the MOD and being, an army welfare worker, and sitting and providing that kind of therapeutic support for people in uniform, people to go out and protect our country and fight for us, in that kind of sense. And you're saying to them, like, tell me how you're feeling. And they're like, fuck off, mate. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, come on. I can see the shit going on with you. This room is a safe space for us. I don't know you, you don't know me, but I'm here to help. So if it means I'm going to share with you, I'll share with you. Something that I went through, just so it shows that we're both human. Because when you take that uniform off, you're just like me. You're a man. Right? We're human, then we're whatever gender we choose, and then we become whatever we go into in regards to work and so on and so forth. But we're all human. We all start somewhere. And then when you level that and you take away those things and you're on a level playing field and you're sitting there talking to a man and you go, tell me about yourself. I always look for a way in. There's got to be some common ground. It might be a football, it might be about his hair, it might be about his trainers, whatever it is, something that is so obscure that they will start to talk from themselves rather than trying to be something they're told to be. And that's my in. Once I get that in, I'm there, because now I've met that person. You know what I mean? And I found something in common with them. And we'll go, like, you got any sisters or brothers? Go, yeah, my sisters, I like pain in the asses. Oh, my sisters were so-and-so, man. Now they're starting to calm and they're starting to open a little bit. Right? So I know where I'm going with him or where I'm going with her, but I need to gain their trust. I need for them to trust me enough that they can open up and go, do you know what, mate? Like, fucking hell, I hate being in the military. I hate being away from home. Because a lot of these guys, they go into the army to escape the life that they're in, that they were born into. I know what I do. I go into the army. It's regular money. They look after you. They pay my bills. They show me. They give me accommodation. They do all the stuff that my parents do for me. All I've got to do is get out of bed and show up. Right? But what they do is they hone them and discipline them and sharpen them up, and educate them and give them all this stuff and give them a much, much better start. But at the same time, they're taking a little bit of them away from them as well. Do you know what I mean? In that sense. So you have to try and humanise that side of things. And so when they're sitting there and they're going, my missus is giving me grief when I get home. And I'm like, okay, can I be objective? And they go, yes. Yeah. So you and your missus have just moved away from the place that they find was safe. And now they're in a part of the country they've never been before, with people they've never met. Nobody they know. And you've got a new baby, right? And your missus is with that baby all day by themselves. You're out and you're getting beasted right? And then you're coming back thinking you want to go to bed, and your missus is like, "I need you. I'm here by myself." He went, "Yeah, that's right." I went, "You've got to remember, there's two of you now doing this, so you need to talk." And then that then turns into a drinking culture because you need to release, right? So then you're going out with your boys and you're releasing that, and you're getting drunk, and the culture of drinking around that is what makes you a man. You know what I mean? I went out and I drank 50 pints and I was under the table. That's a status.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? But then your missus is still sitting indoors with that baby, isolated by herself, away from her family, away from her friends, all by herself, waiting for you to come home to help her and be with her because she's scared, right? And then when you get in and you're drunk and she's having a go at you, all of a sudden domestic abuse starts creeping in. A little slap here, a little slap there, do you know what I mean? But she ain't saying nothing because she's got no one to talk to. Then that starts to become normal. So all these things are now starting to creep in, right? But you're not the problem. She's not the problem. But you are. But you can't see that. Well, I haven't got a drink problem. Dude, when you have a few beers, you turn into a completely different person. That's a problem. Yeah? Well, a drink problem to me is someone's an alcoholic. That's an addiction. Right? They're two different things. So we need to look at you. And so then when you start to give them that and they start to open it up a little bit and you go, you've not adjusted, mate. You've not adapted. You are now away from home. So that relocation is starting to kill you. And then there's no structure, as in structure at home. So the structure within the job and the role that you're doing. And then you might go off to a different country for 5, 6, 7 weeks training. She's still on her own by herself. Then her mum comes down. Now it's very insular in some of those camps. You know, some of those families, those women, they can be bitches. Do you know what I mean? And you're trying to fit in, and if you don't fit in, that's it. You're marginalised. Rejection kicks in, then, don't it? Then you start going in on yourself, and it's just you and your baby, and it's your first child. You don't know how to be a mama, or you're not too sure if you're doing the right thing, and you've not got access to your mum, and like, you know, all this, and it's all different. It's like, oh my god, what am I going to do? And it's like overwhelming, and it's kind of, and that's how it is. But you've not been shown how to cope or how to manage. The facilities are there, but you don't know what to say. He's away for 5 weeks. I ain't going to see him for 5 weeks. I didn't sign up for this. I love him. You know, I can't video call him every single day. I don't want that kind of relationship. So then things start creeping in. So you have to show them that because they're living that and it's normal. But they're not realising that's having a massive impact on them. So you have to have that ability to see the bigger picture and that ability to show them that bigger picture and saying, look, if you make these minor adjustments, if you make these subtle tweaks, things will be a bit different, but you need to talk. Because you're in a place that you're not familiar with, and she's in a place that you're not familiar with, that she's not familiar with, but neither one of you is to acknowledging that. All you're doing is going, she don't talk to me, she just wants me to look after the kids.
Yeah, it's the blame, isn't
Right.
it? Blame,
because it's
blame.
somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
Because they're not looking at the facts and going, you're away from home. Like, you was born in Scotland, you're living in London. Right? The cultures are totally different. You know, in that sense, you've got no family down there, no nothing. And they're just the little things that you're looking at. So, and this is me still sitting in front of this guy, showing him what I can see. And I still don't even know much about him.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so that's where you've got to start to build a relationship with somebody. It becomes more of a, you're there to support him, you're there to help him. But again, your boundaries have to be in there, right? Because you're not doing it for them. You're helping them understand. Because if you fix something in somebody without showing them how you did it, when it breaks, they're coming back again.
So have you now taken all of this, because obviously that would being in the military, have you now taken all of this into life coaching?
Yeah.
Do you still deal with the military, or is it construction based?
No, so for me, I mean, I didn't like the counselling side of it because I'm very impatient. I like to move forward, and my life was moving forward. And I'm thinking, when you're with counselling, it's very, very slow. It's person centered. It's very like, how you feeling? And I'm like, dude, listen, man, you need to fuck it in. Come on, you know what I mean? Let's get something in place here. Let's give you something to focus on. Let's give you a direction. You know, let's give you something to aim for. And then what we'll do is we'll break it down. So every person that I work with, I get them to tell me where they want to see themselves in 12 months' time. Right? That's their focus. In 12 months' time, I want to have a podcast studio and I want it to be this, and this. Right, okay. Right. There's your objective. That's never going to change. Let's work backwards. So what do you need to be doing in 9 months? What do you need to be doing in 6 months? What do you need to be hitting in 3 months, a month, a week, and today? What do you do today? Right, okay, so what's the name of your podcast? Well, I don't know. Right, we need to think of a name. Branding. You know what I mean? What kind of people, what kind of guests do you want? How are you going to reach out? You're going to email them, you're going to call them, right? So these are things, because people think, I could just make a podcast, I'm just chatting. No, mate, it's not. It's not that simple. It can be for some people, but it's not, right? You've got to have a plan and direction. But also how it's got to impact your life. Because now you've got to make time to speak to these people. Then you've got to make time to edit that podcast, and then you got to put your branding on it, and then you got to schedule it, then you got to put it out, and you got to respond to people's messages. It's not a 5-minute job, and also you're still living your everyday life. So how does that work? What do you give up? And then that's when people start to realise it's a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
You have to give something up in order to then allow the space to be free to put something new into it. And that's how I work. It's reality. My way of coaching is I gap the bridge between being your best mate and a therapist. Well, I'll sit with you for as long as you need to sit with you. All right, mate? I won't judge you. I won't do nothing. I will help you get you where you're going to, but I will not fucking tell you what you want to hear, because that will not change nothing. But what I will do is when it starts to get hard and it starts to get difficult, we'll make it a bit more easier because you're not on your own.
You've explained it perfectly, mate. 'Cause one of my questions was going to be, what is the difference between life coach and therapy? But yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there.
And that's how it is. And for me, men work when they get told and they get shown how to find a solution. And natural organic feeling, mate, is when you achieve.
We all need direction, mate, and we all need purpose. And there's quite a few people out there that it's getting harder and harder to recognise, just what that direction probably should be or could be. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that need that kind of shove.
Yeah.
I mean, with what you do, you're pretty much your whole life is immersed, isn't it? Around.
It's become, and Rob will probably say the same thing as well. And the way this comes out is the way that I see it in my head, is that you can be stuck sometimes. I get held hostage by my past because I'm going out onto sites and I'm talking to men, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, 400, 500 men. And I'm talking about things that I'd gone through and happened. And sometimes it keeps you hostage. But when you're talking about it, you're also emotionally attaching yourself back to that as well, because the feelings come back up. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's really hard. I am absolutely peopled out at the end of the week. I don't want to speak to not fucking one person.
Yeah.
I go home, I turn my phone off, I don't talk to anybody, and I just put something so stupid on the TV because I need to recharge my batteries before I go home to my husband, because I don't want to be arriving empty. I've done that before. And then we've fallen out because I am not getting what I need. And so I've had to learn that sort of stuff.
So do you take almost like a detox in between finishing, then you go back home?
I always make sure there's 24 hours before I get a flight.
Right,
Always, because it's not fair on him.
Yeah.
And plus I'm going back to my home in France where it's quiet.
Yeah.
Right, and where I live in a village in the arse end of nowhere where it's all agricultural, and I love it because there's no distractions. And I get to think, and I get to ditch, and I get to replenish, I get to recharge, and I get to refill, and then I can then focus on my coaching clients.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that sense. And it works for me, man, because I lived in chaos for years. And I caught chaos, and chaos is familiar to me.
I mean, you touched on it a couple of times, mate. I don't want to push too deep on it, but you said that you got to a point where you broke down.
Yeah.
Was that, like timescale was that before you started with the life coaching, or was that during the life coaching?
No,
before.
Everything was before. So everything led to me then starting to train and go back. And I qualified as an occupational and social welfare.
Okay.
That was the kind of overarching name they gave us, is occupational social welfare. Basically, it was life coaching, it was social work skills, baseline, and counselling. Right, that's what it was. It was hard. 8 months, man. Like 4 months. Residential. I was away down in Portsmouth. Exams every 2 weeks. If you failed the exams, you was off. Academically, I struggled. I wasn't good academically, so I had to find a way to deal with that. So what they used to do is they used to put all these questions on a bit of paper, and this guy, Chris, he would read all the questions out and put all the answers down, and I'd listen to them in the car on the way down on a Monday morning, and that was what helped me through the exams. But I also knew it was what I was supposed to do. I'd just come off drugs. I was so for me, right, to give you some context. So I was heavily into drugs and alcohol, massively into chemsex. Like constantly taking drugs and having sex with people, like random people. Both me and my husband were doing that for years, and it nearly destroyed me. Nearly destroyed my relationship, right? Because I got so addicted to drugs. I was addicted to crystal meth for like 4 years.
Really?
Yeah. And my
Do you know what, mate? That ain't you don't normally hear that in the UK.
My addiction started in Australia.
Right.
Because cocaine was so expensive, crystal meth was really accessible.
And was that in Australia, or could you get crystal meth here?
Got crystal meth here in the UK as well. But
Really?
That's where I started mine.
Never hear that,
Australia. And then I think one guy came around one day and he was like, "Oh, do you want to make this?" And I was just kind of, "What is it?" It was like crystal, and I was high anyway. I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll give it a go." Do you know what I mean? And it was just there. It was expensive, but it was kind of a luxury for us. But then it was a luxury that just become part of our everyday. Drugs didn't affect Mark the way that it affected me. He could go to sleep, get up, have some food, and go to work. I couldn't. I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't sleep. Right? And then what happened is I started to develop psychosis. So paranoid delusions, thinking I was seeing things and I wasn't seeing things there, thinking I was hearing things. I used to peel wallpaper off my walls, thinking it was like wires behind them and all that. Pull carpet up, pull backs off the backs of pictures, throw mobile phones away. Anything that had a chip or anything in it, I'd ditch because I thought I was being followed by Big Brother. I'd hide behind cars if I was out at night time, thinking that the lights, street lights, when they used to flicker, that they were filming me and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It really, really fucked me up. But I liked the drug too much. I was hooked, man. I was a functioning addict.
Right.
I'd go to work on a Monday morning with no sleep and sit in a meeting and no one would be any the wiser. Do you know what I mean? I just had a heavy weekend and I was just recovering. And it was accepted.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it was. And then I had I made 2 suicide attempts in my life because I had got to that point where I could not manage or cope mentally or physically anymore, and these things in my head were telling me, no one's going to miss you, you're not you're no good, you had to know all you're doing is just dragging people down. And I'd had a lot of trauma anyway, so it was just conjuring everything back up. And so I was then just repeating the cycle. I was just dancing in the penthouse, trying to avoid crashing and burning in the basement, getting consumed by them all and just starting again, trying to run away from it. I've done that for about 4 or 5 years. Tried to kill myself twice, and then I had this mental breakdown. I just popped, literally popped. And then from that point forward, I was like, okay, I need to start doing something. So I went for some counselling and all that, and then that's when I started to realise that actually I was the one that could change this. And then that's when I applied for the AWS, because I was like, I need a change of environment, and I needed to get away. I had to go through all these interviews and tests first before I could even, actually be selected on. But I did it, right? And every Sunday, I would drive down to Southampton. Every Friday, I'd race back home thinking that Mark had someone in the house, because I was still trying to deal with the psychosis. I was still weaning myself off the drugs. I wasn't taking any drugs. I'd stopped, but I was still drinking. It's a drinking culture, you know what I mean? And so the alcohol allowed me to not focus on not taking any drugs. And then once I'd done the 4 months down there, I went on placement. So I started getting my own clients, my own thing and all that. And I loved it. I loved everything. I had a purpose, man. I had a career for the first time in my life. And things were going well. And self-sabotage comes in, doesn't it? Right, this is going too good to be true. I need to fuck this shit up. So I started to creep back into my old habits again. And lucky enough, Mark took redundancy. And he used to be a banker. And he was like, I'm not going to wait for retirement. We was going to move to France, probably around about this sort of time now. And he was like, why don't we just set up and move? And I was just kind of like, all right, let's do it. Didn't even give it a second thought. So we sold up, moved to France, grew hair, put on about £1.50 each, you know what I mean? Bought this land with these houses, and rented out one as an Airbnb, and that's what we've done. We decided to make our life so much smaller, so much smaller, and it worked. And then I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? I can't just be sitting around drinking all day. Do you know what I mean? And then my drinking started to get heavier and heavier and heavier. I was drinking like 3 litres of wine every day, like a box of wine I was drinking. Do you know what I mean? And then Mark's mum got sick, and he went back to the UK, and he was here for 3 months in first part of COVID. So I was on my own, and I hate being on my own. Hated being on my own. Couldn't speak the language, couldn't engage with nobody, couldn't connect with anybody. So it was just me and the dog, and I was just getting drunk and waking up on my settee, hungover, covered in red wine. You know what I mean? And my dog's crying to go for fucking shit. And then I was just kind of like, I can't do this anymore. So I gave up drinking. Mark's mum died of cancer, and then I gave up drinking, and I was like, I need to do something. I need to do something. I need to find a purpose. And so I started to talk about my mental health, because I started to have all this space without any distractions. And I was like, I needed to see myself, what I looked like and what I sounded like, because I could hear myself in my head and I could see myself in the mirror, but I didn't know what it sounded like, what it felt like. And I remember I made a video of myself, and I was like, let me just post this and see what happens. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't big, but it made me feel good about me. It made me feel like I was being brave, and it made me then go, okay, maybe I need to start digging about and working out and understanding. And that's how it just started. And And then I'd have people just kind of randomly messaging me and going, you know, what would you do about so and so? I didn't set out with the intention to do anything really. I just needed to fill my time because my time was always filled with drinking, and COVID was in then. And so I liked going out with my dogs in the fields and making videos, do you know what I mean? And listening to podcasts and then applying it to myself and helping myself kind of change and understand and all that sort of stuff. And so you find the way that works for you, and that worked for me. And then, excuse me, and then we was renting out the Airbnb, so it was always busy, sort of like June, July, August with guests. And we liked that. We liked people were coming on holiday, and we could see how where we live was having this really positive effect on people because it was quiet and it was tranquil, and you know, and it was doing wonders for people. You know what I mean? And then I started doing Instagram lives. Like, that's how it all started for me. Instagram lives.
Really?
Yeah. I'd done this series called "What It's Like Being a Man in Today's World," and that's how I met Rob. Me and Rob are like tight. We're like, he's like my best mate, you know. What I mean? Like, we really are. And that's how our relationship blossomed. And then, and I wasn't even going back to the UK at the time. It was all based from home. And then I think I went back to the UK for something. And then I met Rob, and we done a midnight marathon. So from Twickenham to the Excel Centre for construction sport, we done it for. And we had a stall at Construction UK at the Excel. So we'd done this 26-mile walk from 12 o'clock at night until 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. When UK Construction Week opened, we was on the stall for 3 days. Fucked. But it was the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
And that's how I got involved with the charity. And things just kind of took off from there. Do you know what I mean? But I was healing, Russ.
Yeah.
I was healing because I was talking and I was trusting myself and I was believing in myself and I had a focus and I had a direction to go in and I knew what I wanted to achieve. And then I started the podcast because I struggled. Like, I have a podcast called Struggling Mind Podcast.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be for people that were just like me.
There's something to that, mate. There really is, healing people while healing yourself. Because I've found, like, sat here doing this, I've probably said stuff to guests that I've never told anybody else before, and then, like, openly, not because I've deliberately held it back or it was a secret, it's just not a conversation I'd had.
Yeah.
And then the guest will go and I'll sit there and think, Christ, I've never really spoke about that before. You know, it's not because I was deliberately holding it, just I guess I didn't have the space to explore whatever it was that was discussed. There's definitely therapy to it, mate.
People need people, man. I don't care what anybody says. And if people say they don't, they're lying. Like, people need people. Sometimes you just don't have the right people around you, which means you have to reevaluate that, like, again, freshen it up. Do you know what I mean? I don't allow people just to randomly sit at my fucking table. Do you know what I mean? I keep my life small where I can control what comes in and come out, and I select the people that sit at my table. It's a privilege to sit at my table. Before, I was available to anybody, do you know what I mean? Because that's what I thought about myself. But now, my time is sacred to me. You know, I invest very wisely because it's important that I do that.
Massively important, mate.
That I do that. But I'm at a stage now where, so I've been 8 years clean. I've hard drugs, right? I'm 4 years sober. Really, really, really proud of those achievements. And
so you should be, mate. Well done on that.
Yeah, and cheers, man. And for me, it's about now paying that forward. So now I try to do, if I record anything, I always try to show both sides. It's not all sweetness and light. Right? It's not all sweetness and light. I get up every morning and my brain goes to war with me. My negative soldiers get up and they're like, right, let's kick your ass, motherfucker. Yeah. But I've developed these positive soldiers that go to war against that. So I don't go to war against my brain anymore. Right? I work with it. I understand how it works because I invest in me. I'm aware of me. I'm aware of what I'm like, and I give myself what I need. It's important that I look at me first. So I swapped alcohol for yoga. I'm just about to go on a retreat, actually, to become a yoga teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want to turn where I live into a retreat. Right. I want people to come to the life that I've created. I want them to be able to unplug from their world. Right.
Funnily enough, the episode that came out this week, mate, there's a chap called James Payne, Akisha Surface Design. I don't know if you're aware of him.
I had a look, mate. I started following him because I like to now start following people that are in places that I want to be.
Yeah, so he's got a page as well called Urban Yoga, I think, or Urban Medicine.
I think it's Urban Medicine.
Yeah, Urban Medicine. But
I checked you, mate. Don't worry.
He's a yoga teacher. So
yeah. So I admire those people now because I understand how important it is to look after this inside. Like, I have to be careful of what I feed myself. All right, so I'm going on this retreat because number one, it's vegan, which I've never done before. Number two, there's no sugar, there's no caffeine, right, and no
Okay.
alcohol. But I'm also going to be around people that I can't speak the same language with, that I don't know, that I'm going to be sharing a room with. But I'm also going to be doing something I love doing, and someone's going to teach me properly. I've done online yoga classes and tried to do online qualifications, but dude, I haven't got the staying power. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to me, I can't commit.
Yeah.
My brain's just like, yeah, fuck that. I'm going to do something
Sounds like you
else.
got the perfect setup though, mate.
I'm getting it. I had to create it, but I had to work out
Yeah.
who I was. I had to strip away a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that wasn't mine. I had to get a lot of blame and responsibility I had to give back to people that I held on to thinking it was mine. Expectations I had to make my own, right? And I had to uncondition myself, and I had to unlearn learned behaviours. And it's hard. It's really, really, really hard because you've got to strip it back to the bare bone. Strip it right back to the bare bone. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I did. And I'm like, right, if I've done this for myself and I've created this space and this life for myself, I want to share it. Right? I want to share it with people. I want people to come and be able to find themselves.
So you're going to set up your own then, like yoga
So basically, where I
retreats.
live, I have an acre of land, and I've got my house, and I've got the Airbnb that I rent out, and I'm going to use the Airbnb for the guests. Right, so that'll only be a very intimate place because I can't deal with a lot of people. I can deal with about 4 or 5 people, about 4 or 5 days, so it's perfect. But then what I'll do is I'll do some one-to-one coaching with them. I'll do some group coaching with them. We'll do some workshops. We'll take them out into the field so they can walk around, have conversations. I want them to be able to have a conversation with themselves, ask themselves who they are, and reintroduce themselves to themselves where they are right now. Because a lot of us want to go back to a version of ourselves that doesn't exist. It's physically and mentally and emotionally impossible. So I want people to meet themselves where they are. And then we'll plan. And we'll plan the next 12 months. Give them goals. Give them things to achieve. You know
I
what I mean?
like that,
And those
mate.
tiny
Yeah.
little goals that they do in order to become and achieve that big objective. Every time you achieve a goal, mate, it's a boost, and it boosts your confidence, and it boosts your self-esteem because you did that. You done that yourself. You know what I mean? And then when you reach that pinnacle, that ultimate goal, and you're like, I did this, and you look back and you go, see, I am capable of doing that. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to give back because I've done that, man. I've been there. Do you know what I mean? I can't get them to walk my shoes, but what I can do is get them to cut their own groove. Do you understand what I mean? And so that's where, and I want to spend more time at home, really. If I'm being honest, like, that's the thing is I don't want to be traveling. I'm sick of fucking traveling. I'm always on a plane or on a fucking train or in a
It's hard
van.
work, mate, what you guys do. I've
It's
thought that about what
tiring.
Rob does as well, like that you guys travelling around so much. So commendable what you do, mate. And not only is it commendable, it's needed. Like,
Absolutely.
it's desperately needed. But yeah, I can understand that from a personal perspective, mate. And
Yeah.
not only that, one, I wish you all the best. I'm in doing that, I can picture, you're saying about like picturing things. I can picture your sort of like house and the land and all the rest of it and what you get to do, mate. And I think, yeah, it's a fantastic idea, mate. It'll do well.
We're just going to sit outside, we'll have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. We'll chat, talk, engage. People will help each other that's there. I mean, it could be 2 dads, 2 sons, 2 mums, 2 daughters, 3 brothers and a sister, whatever it is, 4 people. 4 people who've never met before. However that dynamics is, doesn't matter. But when they leave, they're going to have a much more a better sense of themselves and how they have the ability to change, understand, and grow
I like
and
that, mate.
evolve. But also they have that chance where they can just sit by themselves and go, where am I?
Yeah.
Like, where am I in life? Like, what do I want? And reflect and project and create. You know what I mean? In an environment that is just outdoors, full of trees. I love where I live, man. I love where I live.
Who knows, mate? One day, I'll have a chat with you afterwards. Actually, I've had a few ideas, and yeah, there's one that might cross over there.
Yeah.
So, but
So
yeah,
that's where I am in life at the moment, mate. So this year is about reinvesting in me and learning. And I'm taking myself out of my comfort zone. I'm scared of heights. I'm 6'5". I'm scared of heights. I don't know why
yeah,
yet, but the only way for me to find out is to test myself. So I just want to do more stuff with Mark, and I just want to do more stuff with my dogs, and I just want to carry on doing what I'm doing and trying to make a difference in the way that I can make a difference. But at the same time, I just want to heal, and I just want to I want to enjoy those moments of happiness that I have. And I want to be able to get over those moments of fucking sadness that I have. You know what I mean? And I want to be able to sit with myself when I want to get up and run away, and I want to be able to just I'm content. Right? I'm content and I'm happy with being content, but I still want more. But I also realised that, I have to slow down a little bit. I have to take the foot off the gas a little bit, and I have to allow myself to be me. and I have to give myself what I need. It's really important, because if I'm not doing that, then I'm neglecting myself. And I don't have all my shit together. I never will have all my shit together. I'll get things wrong. I'll fuck things up. Things will go wrong. But as long as I'm able to learn from that and understand that, then I'm happy with that, And so the only person that was ever giving me a hard time was me. Always. Because it comes back to that choice again, don't it? Do I hammer myself or just go, all right, fair enough, mate, it happened. Let's just deal with it. What do we learn? Let's move on. So I'm trying to just be better than yesterday. That's all. That's all I'm trying to do, mate.
I love that, mate. It's a good place to bring things to a T. I think we've done start, middle, end. It's great to hear where you're at, where you're going. I love that, mate. It's a nice sentiment to end things on. Before we do wrap it up, Lee, just tell everyone where they can find you in terms of your coaching, in terms of your socials and all that lot.
So you can find me at Lee Anderson Coaching on Instagram. My website is www.leeandersoncoaching.com. It will tell you a little bit about what I do, who I am. But you can direct message me. I might not be able to help you, but I might know someone that can. So sometimes the most difficult thing for some people is, who do they ask? What do they say? I'm happy to facilitate that. I really am. Do you know what I mean? In that sense. But if you're ever looking for a coach, here's a tip. Right? Find somebody that is where you want to be. Find somebody that's been through what you've been through, because they get it and they understand. Don't find somebody that does something totally random, because there's going to be no connection to that whatsoever. Find somebody that is in a space or has become a version of something that you want to become, because then it gives you something to grow into, that you can take some of their knowledge, some of their understanding, and apply it to yourself, because it's always going to be about you. Right? The only person we're ever going to spend the rest of our life with is us. And if we're not happy with us, no one else is going to make us happy. Right? It's never going to happen. So if you are looking for coaching or anything like that, find somebody that's been there and is where you want to be, so you can grow into that and you can ask the questions and get them to be open with you. I'm open with all my clients. I tell them about all the fuck-ups, all the things to expect, all the things that I went through and what to expect, and prepare them for it. There's no hidden agenda. It is what it is. It's very direct. Sometimes it can be quite brutal, but we need to be brutal because you want to change. That's what it's all about. It's about change. If you don't want to change, then fucking shut up, stop moaning, and just accept where you are. And I mean that with love as well. And you can find me on LinkedIn underneath Lee Anderson.
As always, mate, I'll put all your details in the episode description. So scroll down wherever you're watching or listening to this. Lee's details will be there. So you'll be able to find a live link through to one of Lee's social channels, whichever one I managed to tag in there. But your details will be in there, mate. Cool. So it'll make it nice and easy for people to reach out. To those of you listening, thank you very much for tuning in. Before we do leave, a big shout out to the Funky Peach for supplying all the guest merchandise, of which I will send Lee away with a nice new hoodie and beanie and cap and whatever it is you want to take away. So thank you to you guys for supporting the podcast by providing that. And I will catch you again soon on the next one.